Opening day in Japan. Could the Dodgers Japanese stars step up? Yeah, I'd say they stepped up. Let's talk about it live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Tuesday morning, right after the Dodgers season opening win against the Cubs. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is my co-host, Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And Vince, the Dodgers started the season in Japan with a 4-1 victory over the Cubs. You know, this was a game, obviously the first game in history where two Japanese-born starting pitchers started against each other on opening day. The fact that it happened to happen in Japan added to the mystique, and both starters were excellent. Both teams also have a superstar Japanese-born position player, and one of them stepped up. You know, obviously we care more about the Dodgers side. Shohei Ohtani was great for his 4 innings. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was great for his 5 innings to earn the win, and Shohei Ohtani had 2 hits, scored 2 runs, you know, led the offense. Yamamoto, let's talk Yamamoto. It was a different Yamamoto than we've ever seen before, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he was dialing it up for sure in terms of velocity and, you know, touching 98 early on. The splitter looked really good. And I know there was at least maybe a couple concerns that I saw about the velocity in terms of he ramped it up last year against the Yankees and then got hurt. But this is the Yamamoto velocity we've seen most of the spring. Like, he's been amped up, ramped up, whatever you want to call it, since the start of spring. So I think this is just his velocity now. I don't think it's anything special or in terms of pitching in Japan or anything like that. Like, he's been throwing, you know, he's been touching 97 all spring. And if this is the guy, I mean, I talked about the other day how excited I was to see him pitch this year. And this is exactly why, because I think he's going to step into that role of ace, that role of I'm the guy, and that role of comfortability that you see a lot of guys kind of get in their second, third year, whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch. He probably could have got another inning, but the Dodgers have no reason to because their bullpen is so good.
Yeah, we'll talk about the bullpen in the third segment because that was a lot of fun to watch too. Yamamoto's splitter was he used it more frequently than he usually does. He threw it harder than he usually does, or at least than he has in previous seasons or last year with the Dodgers anyway. And it was kind of untouchable. He gave up 1 infield single off it that, you know, should have been an out. And other than that, you know, nothing off the splitter. It was ridiculous. And you know, Karros and Joe Davis were talking during the broadcast about the splitter and how it used to be a more common pitch and how it's kind of starting to come back into popularity. And some of that might be these Japanese pitchers. And obviously in tomorrow's game, we're going to get to see Roki Sasaki's splitter, which is better than Yamamoto's. But Yamamoto's today, the way he threw this splitter, like, and the command, that was the big thing that stuck out to me, was the fact that he was throwing it just below the strike zone, even in the strike zone sometimes. Like, it seemed to me like, for the most part, Yamamoto was putting that splitter where he wanted to throw it, which is not always easy to do with the pitch that moves like that.
Yeah, I mean, you combine that with the fact, like, that one strikeout looking, and I forget what inning, was literally in the perfect right top corner of the.
That might have been.
Box.
I think that might have been the last batter he faced.
Yeah, so I mean, it was. It finished out the 5th inning that way. Look, command was something that we knew he was going to have when he came over, but that was fastball command. If he can combine that with some splitter command, especially down in the zone, it just, the Dodgers are going to become known as a splitter team, especially once Ohtani gets back up. They're going to have those guys kind of living in the bottom of the zone, and then they're going to have the fastball probably play up in the top part of the zone, which is something that the Dodgers pitchers have done pretty well for the last few years. Yeah, it's exciting, and you don't want to get too hyped up. I mentioned the Cubs lineup is not the greatest lineup once you get past the first few guys, but still, compared to what we saw from Yamamoto in his game one last year, a lot better in that regard. And yeah, for him, I think just feeling comfortable as a pitcher in the big leagues now is going to be huge for him. And it's wasn't quite there with the strikeouts, but like you said, the splitter was basically unhittable, and you'll take a lot of weak contact any time of the day.
Absolutely. And even a lineup that isn't great after you get past the first few hitters, still got to get past the first few hitters. And he did. On the offensive side, Shohei Ohtani leading off for the Dodgers, led the team, went 2 for 5, a single and a double, both hit 107 miles an hour. The double was, Ryan Brazier, it was like Ryan Brazier has got to be like watching the replay right now and thinking, how in the world did he hit that thing 107 miles an hour? Because it was not a bad pitch at all. He had no business even getting the bat on the ball, and to drive it to right field the way he did. Will Smith, RBI single and 3 walks. So he is currently the team leader in OPS. Max Muncy had 2 walks, saw 32 pitches in 5 plate appearances, even though he didn't have a hit. Max Muncy is part of the reason that Shohei Ohtani only went 4 innings because he drove up the pitch count, and then Teoscar Hernandez had an RBI single. Tommy Edman had an RBI single. All in all, just kind of a ho-hum Dodgers offensive day. We put up 4 runs. We won the game. The kind of game that, hopefully I think we're going to see a lot more high-scoring games we saw here. But it kind of showed what this team is, that even on a day where the opposing starting pitcher was excellent and the offense, maybe didn't totally have it, they still put enough runs to win the game. And at the end of the day, Ohtani in a game that didn't stand out as, that was a very Ohtani game. He was 2 for 5 with 2 runs scored and hit the 2 hardest balls of the game.
One of the calling cards of the Dodgers offense, especially when it's going well, is getting into the bullpen. And sometimes it's maybe not the most fun thing to watch when when you have no runs, maybe squander a couple of scoring opportunities, but you look in the 4th, 5th inning and that pitcher is, 80 plus pitches. Now Yamamoto wasn't quite that high, but in the first game of the season, 79 pitches might as well have been 99 pitches, and that's exactly what happened. And then that 5th inning, you get a new pitcher and the Dodgers score, right away. And that's kind of what, obviously this offense has the star power, has the, power in general to be able to put up runs in bunches. But, at the end of the day, at the very least, they're going to make pitchers work. Muncy, I think they said was 3 at-bats. He saw like 23 pitches or something like that. Like, yeah, he didn't get the hit and maybe swung at some pitches and struck out or whatever the case is. But that still plays into the entire, overall nature of the game. And that's how the Dodgers do it. And, that's how they got it done today. Managa had never walked more than 2 guys, or only 3 innings last year that he walked 2 guys in an inning. He had the best strikeout to walk ratio. And he's going to have to do some work to reverse that strikeout to walk ratio after this game.
Yeah, 3 times last year, walked 2 guys in an inning, did it 2 times today. So he's got 1 more for this year. So save it for next time he plays the Dodgers, I guess, because Dodgers know how to work a pitcher, and they got the job done. They did that without Mookie Betts or Freddie Freeman. We got a little more news on Mookie and some unexpected news on Freddie. We'll dig into that when we come back. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Just Ingredients. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with 2-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. This comes at a good time for me, as Just Ingredients signed up as a sponsor with Locked On. I got some stuff in the mail I'm pretty excited about. I am trying to focus on the things I put into my body, wholesome, nourishing ingredients without artificial junk. Obviously, looking at me, if you're on YouTube, I can use that. I am hoping I'm looking forward to using just ingredients and having be part of my strategy to get healthier and to live my best life, whether recovering after workout or just any energy boost. Their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout deliver real results. Just visit justingredients.us/Bryce-Harper and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off your order. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. I love that it's all in one place. I've got a login for my bank account and my investments and my mortgage and all of those things. Monarch Money, you can see it all in one place. And it kind of gives you insights on how much money you're spending, all in one convenience, so you don't have to juggle multiple apps. You can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. We are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, for your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. Since this is the only major league game going on today, I suspect Sully might be talking about this game just like we are. Probably not as glowingly of the Dodgers, but, hopefully, and it's a good show. Also, you can go be on the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. And be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And I want to shout out all of you who are with us live here. It is 6:18 a.m. in Los Angeles right now, where a lot of you are. 7:18 a.m. for me, so it's practically midday for me. But we know there are a lot of other channels live right now, and yet our crowd looks pretty good here. So we appreciate all of you. We know you have options where you get your Dodgers content, and we appreciate you choosing Locked On Dodgers, practicing to be a flight attendant.
What'd you end up doing, by the way? Did you end up going to sleep?
I went to bed. I went to bed at 9:00 last night. I was asleep before 10 and slept pretty well. So I didn't hate life when my alarm went off at 4:00 this morning. And I should be plenty tired to go to bed early again tonight. I'm going to try to get through today without a nap, or if I do nap, it'll be a quick little nap so I can get to bed early again tomorrow. The fact that I've been sick helped because I've been pretty tired the last couple of days. So, who knew that being sick would be a good thing? Mookie Betts is sick. We got the news that he did fly back to Los Angeles to recuperate there. It's always easier to get better in the comfort of your own home. I can't imagine a trans-Pacific flight when feeling lousy, but I suspect that Mookie Betts travels in a little bit more comfort than I do. So hopefully he made it home safely and is feeling better, and can get some chicken soup or whatever he needs and get that meat back on his bones.
161 pounds, they said he dropped down to. Joe Davis said he dropped down to. That's fifth grade numbers for me, I think.
Yeah, 161. Yeah, roughly fifth grade, probably, maybe fourth. But I wasn't as tall as him when I was 161. I was like 5'1" when I was 161. But yeah, the other news we got that was less expected was that Freddie Freeman missed this game. He was in the starting lineup, and then it was less than an hour before game time that he was scratched with rib soreness, which is concerning, knowing what he went through last year, knowing how much effort it took to even play the games last postseason. And obviously they got things figured out late in the postseason, and he ended up being World Series MVP, and it worked out. But it was a lot of work to get there. And you have to imagine, if it had been the regular season, Freddie probably would have missed a month instead of grinding for a month. And, we don't have any idea yet at this point at 6:21 a.m. Los Angeles time on Tuesday how severe this is. And, you said on Twitter, Vince, hopefully it's just precautionary. We just don't have any idea right now.
Yeah, precautionary, I would imagine if he was in the lineup and then got hurt, it had to have happened when he was swinging before the game. The one thing that, if you're going to jump to conclusions, the one conclusion I jumped to is that Max Muncy was talking somewhere and said that, even Freddie was trying to hit home runs during batting practice just because the crowd is so different during batting practice than maybe the crowds back home. Freddie usually doesn't take BP on the field, so maybe that's a little bit different. Whatever it was, I would imagine, it's more precautionary than anything. I would imagine that wouldn't have lingered, or there was no reason for it to have popped up now. Like, it's not like, his ankle where he ended up having to get surgery and then, whatever the case happened. I don't see a reason for this to be alarming at the moment. I don't see anything from Dave Roberts yet. So maybe, it could be. But I would imagine he's just going to sit out game 2 at this point, and, they'll figure things back out of when they come back home or see how he's feeling.
And that seemed to be Eric Karros's assumption too. I don't think it was based on any inside information, but Karros kind of mentioned, take these couple days off and get ready for the games against the Tigers. And maybe that is, it does seem the most logical thing, that especially, maybe not even especially, after you get this win, it's like, okay, worst case scenario, we split the series in Korea last year and the season turned out okay. So, if we can win game 1 without Freddie, there's no reason to rush him back into this lineup. Ultimately, even if they had lost this game, that would still be true, that there's no reason to rush him back into the lineup. And hopefully that will be, hopefully it is just precautionary, and that by the time, because we're now 10 days away, 10 and a half days, I guess. No, 9.5 days away from the domestic opener against the Tigers on the 27th. And so 9.5 days, if it is just precautionary and it's just soreness, hopefully that is plenty of time for him to get feeling better. And he and Mookie can work on things together. Just, okay, I'm going to ice and you eat, and it can be a party. They can get better together. The fact that they were able to win this game without 2 of their big 3. I mean, the big thing about the Dodgers, these 3 MVPs at the top of the lineup, they had one of them and he acted like an MVP and they won the game.
Yeah, and that was the thing through the first 4 innings. There's going to be doomsday, especially when you're on Twitter and you're kind of living in the moment. But you think about the Dodgers through those first 4, and you're like, oh man, they squandered some opportunities. But realistically, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman would have been that lineup. Maybe it would have been a little bit different. Whatever the case was, they ended up doing what they needed to do. But yeah, it's more important. We've talked about this a lot. I want Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts in September, October, rather than right now, especially, in these games that are, they count the regular season, but essentially glorified exhibition games in a sense, other than the fact that they count in the standings. So there's no reason to risk anything right now. Yeah, maybe Freddie, like I said, just had taken more intense swings or more intense training or more intense whatever last couple of days and just didn't react quite well. And that's kind of what we talked about before, is that these guys might need more days off. Like Freddie's getting up there in age, Mookie is a little bit different. His sickness, not necessarily anything else. And he's not quite up there in age in terms of baseball years. But yeah, this is just something that happens. Sometimes you are sore when you didn't think you'd be sore. And hopefully that's all this is.
Yeah, I hope so. BC in the chat says Freddie's turning into Kobe after the Achilles, always some nagging injuries. I think it's too soon necessarily to say that, because this, like you said, this was the first game that counts since the day that Freddie held up the World Series MVP trophy. And so, yeah, it may be, and like you said, we've talked about that a lot this offseason, that we may have to see a slightly different version of Freddie Freeman that doesn't plan on playing 162 games a year. And I think that is, like you talked about in the context of David Bodie, in the context of Dalton Rushing, all these guys, I think that's going to be part of where some of these opportunities come up for these guys, is that Freddie Freeman might need an occasional day off,
Yeah, we're starting to get some tweets, and Jack Harris said, Freddie Freeman said during his last round of BP, he felt discomfort in the same area of his ribs he hurt during last year's playoffs. He said this is much less severe and still lobbied to play today. Said there's a 75% chance he's back in tomorrow, depending how it feels.
All right. I'd say that if he wanted to play today and they didn't let him, I'd say his 75% needs to be cut at least in half. And
yeah, that's his number, not Dave Roberts' number.
Yeah, I'd probably subtract about 74% from that. But yeah, that's kind of what we were hoping. That it is just okay. And when you have an injury, sometimes it's just the first time, or for a while, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And it's not the same injury, but it's a remnant of the same injury.
Yeah, it's like once, hopefully not with him, but like, kind of felt when you were a kid, once you turned your ankle, it felt like you turned your ankle a lot more often after that. So
for me, every day of my life, I've been to 2 of my son's baseball tournaments this year, and I'm 2 for 2 on rolling my ankle on day 1 of the tournament and then limping around like a big fat fatty the rest of the tournament. So
well, they won the last tournament, so maybe you have to roll it again.
Yeah, well, whether I need to or not, I'm sure I will. The Dodgers bullpen looked really, really good. As we mentioned, Yamamoto only went 5 innings, and that was okay because the bullpen went 4 and was even better than Yamamoto. We're going to dig into the specifics of that, including our buddy Ben Kasperius looking pretty darn froggy. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
We are back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer. Thanks again, all of you who are with us live here. 6:29 a.m. now in Los Angeles. Let's go to the traffic and weather. Just kidding. We are going to talk about the Dodgers bullpen. A little bit of weather there because, I'm sure there's some weather analogy I could have finished that sentence with, but not at 7:30 in the morning, Utah time. Bullpen looked good, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier with Yamamoto going 5, realistically, he's probably built up to go a little bit more. Could have went into that 6, but there's no reason to, especially when you have 10 relievers behind him. I mean, the Dodgers probably could have went with almost any combination and been in a decent spot, but Bonda, Kasperius, Trinan, Scott, not your 4 maybe top leverage arms, but it could be. Like Bonda looked really good. Kasperius touching 98.5, and we talked about him already this spring in terms of that velocity uptick, and again, not anything that's maybe a couple ticks because of where he was at and the the adrenaline of it all, but he's been up so far this spring. And then Trinan and Tanner Scott, I mean, I feel bad for a lot of offenses that are going to have to face the Dodgers down in the game going into the 8th inning, because you have Blake Trinan stuff, which still seems unreal every time he pitches. And then you have Tanner Scott from the left side of just pumping fastballs and right at you. It's going to be tough sledding for a lot of these guys. But, yeah, I mean, if you could build out the perfect way to have a game, I think this is as close to it as you would want it to be.
Yeah, and this is without Michael Kopech and Evan Phillips and Bruce Argratero, who are all injured right now. But looking at who the Dodgers have right now, other than Alex Vesia, this kind of was their top guys. You go into this saying, okay, and you figure they're thinking Vesia or Bonda, not using both of them in this game. And so you go Bonda, plan on Vesia being the first lefty out of the pen on Wednesday morning. The fact that Ben Kasperius is kind of now included in this, and rightfully so. Like, his stuff is just, we talked about it a lot this spring about how good he looks, how much harder he's throwing. His curveball's a lot harder. I mean, it is, you look at his stuff and the way he's pitching right now, you don't have to squint very hard to see an elite reliever like this. Ben Kasperius could be the best closer in baseball 2 years from now with the kind of stuff we're seeing. I'm not saying he will be, but that's what I'm seeing from Ben Kasperius. Like, this is a dominant relief pitcher.
Yeah, and he's going to start as a multi-inning reliever by the end of the year. I don't know if that'll necessarily still be the case, but I don't see a reason not to. Like, if he's built up, he's built up his whole life as a starter, and now they can say, hey, we need you in 2 inning spurts. You can still touch that velocity, still have that sharpness on your pitches. And, the fact that he has more than 2 pitches helps out with that multi-inning. So, he could be a guy that is a bridge. When a starter only goes 5, he can get you 6 and 7 when you're in those dog days where your relievers have all thrown the last couple days, whatever the case is. And he's a guy that can pitch in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning of a close game, like at this point. Now, obviously, we're going to have to see it a lot more, but he has the stuff. Whether that stuff ends up holding up is different. But yeah, and then you have Bonda, who, we talked about as a potential guy that might have not made like the roster at some point, not necessarily because he wasn't as good, just because the Dodgers had added extra arms and he was a guy that didn't have options. And, he was a guy that had pitched in not as many high leverage situations last year, but, he's a guy that's still legit this year. Alex Vesia, I hope that Roki goes 5+ innings tomorrow, but also I hope maybe he doesn't, because I still want to see Jack Dreyer. I still want to see Alex Vesia. I still want to see these other guys pitch. And yeah, I mean, even with Kopech and Phillips not even in the country, Gratterall, the same thing. This Dodgers bullpen has the makings of some fun stuff.
Yeah, Justin Robleski is another guy who we didn't see today, who we could see tomorrow, who has filthy stuff, who looked really good this spring. But yeah, with Jack Dreyer, with Vesia, that's 3 lefties who we'll probably see tomorrow. Landon Knack, I guess, is who else do they have who didn't? Oh, Luis Garcia. I guess we didn't talk about the roster. Garcia was the one. Well, Garcia and Roki were the 2 non-roster guys who made the roster, got added to the 40-man roster. Brusdar Gratterall and Michael Grove both got moved to the 60-day IL to make room for those guys. We'll probably see. Hopefully the Dodgers can come out and knock Justin Steele around tomorrow, and so it can be a little bit more of a low pressure situation for both Roki and some of these other relievers. But also, they've got days off after, and so you could see Tanner Scott again tomorrow. Tanner Scott didn't have to work very hard in this game. If there's a save situation, I would guess Tanner Scott gets a save again tomorrow. It's fun doing this right after the game, so we can just say tomorrow and actually mean tomorrow. Usually we're late at night, and it's like, okay, not knowing what word to use to describe things. So it's Tuesday morning, 6:35 a.m. LA time, and so we can actually say tomorrow. This bullpen has me excited.
Yeah, I mean, last year going into the season, it was kind of funny because we thought the bullpen was going to be a strength. It didn't start out that way, and that was based on a few different factors. And then it kind of, once it righted itself, that's kind of when the Dodgers got going. And obviously we saw in the postseason that was, probably one of the biggest reasons they were able to win, obviously bullpen games and just the way they handle things. But yeah, to come in, it feels a little bit unfair in the sense of like the Dodgers are coming in as a team that it seems like they've been like practicing and working out for 2 months now compared to everyone else's a month in. Like they're just so solidified in what they have, even with all the injuries. I mean, you look at the IL, I think there was 9 pitchers on the IL to once they had the official roster out. But beyond that, everything's kind of settled, even with the uncertainty in the position player side of second base and center field. you're going to have somebody that's major league quality starting regardless of who it is. It's just a matter of kind of hot hand or health or whatever the case is. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's fun to win the first game. We're not going to, put the entire season on this, but, we already expected this from the Dodgers. So it's just kind of, par for the course.
Yeah. The results technically matter now, but these games are really only moderately more important than the spring training games they've been playing. It's the big picture, all that. But as we said, even during spring training, it's more fun to watch the Dodgers win than to watch them lose, especially now that the games count. Last year, they won the first game in Korea and then lost the second game because Yoshinobu Yamamoto did not pitch well. This time, it'll be Roki Sasaki instead, making his major league debut the same way Yamamoto did in game 2 last year. Hopefully he will pitch better. Shohei Ohtani saw on Twitter just a minute ago, he said after today's game, this is the most nervous he's been for a game in a long time, which makes sense. His first time playing in Japan as a major league player in a major league game. And so you imagine if Shohei Ohtani's got nerves, imagine what Roki Sasaki is going to have tomorrow. And so going to temper our expectations, but hopefully, like I said, the bats will come out and win the game for Roki, regardless of how he pitches. All in all, though, great way to start a early morning today. You got anything else for today, Vince?
Yeah, we got an inning of Clayton Kershaw in the booth. That's always fun. Especially, I think it sucks that he's hurt, but it's been, I guess, the blessing in disguise the last year or so where we've got to see him in the booth a couple times. So hopefully they bring him back for another inning in game 2.
Yeah, I am on board with as much Kershaw in the booth or, mic'd up from the dugout or whatever it is, because he and Joe Davis have great chemistry. And whether it's, Eric Karros or Hershiser with Joe, I mean, it's really good. I did see a comment here from Benjamin Susan. The Cubs pitchers threw over 180 pitches. The Dodgers pitchers threw 108. That is the Dodgers game plan on offense. A lot of the time, just wear down these pitchers. And the Dodgers pitchers being efficient like that makes for, Ben also says that Dodgers 4 relievers threw less than 40 pitches. So I would imagine most of those guys are available again tomorrow if necessary, although it won't necessarily be necessary. Trinan threw 16. That was the most of any of them. So, it looks like it was over 40, just under 50 total. But we will take that for sure.
Yeah.
That'll wrap it up for us today. Obviously, there will be more news over time about Freddie Freeman. Probably not until closer to game time tomorrow, because in Japan it is now time for them to go home and go to sleep, where it's time for us to get up and go about our days. But we will be back again tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, right after game 2 of the Tokyo series ends. And then we will, we'll probably just schedule it for 15 minutes after the game ends, because I think we discovered today that 10 minutes might be pushing it with Vince's day job.
Yeah.
So
the Fox games means I can't post anything really until the game ends.
So plan on us 15 minutes after the end of the game tomorrow. Hope we have a bunch of you here live again today. This was awesome. Great group here. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to make it easier to find us every single day. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, maybe for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast with host Dominic Martino and Matthew Ane. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here, so be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Locked On Fantasy Baseball, just like all Locked On podcasts, can be found on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or sit on your couch. Tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.